The Emperor is dead. Long live the Empress. Yes, Madame Noir's plan went into effect, and Greta consumed Emperor Zet. Kind of was lampshaded a bit previously with some of Greta's habits. I mean, we saw at least once or twice before that she can devour things, and I called this. I really, really called this. I mean, Zed's been around for, what, 10 episodes, and he's really not done anything. So, yeah, anticlimax, getting rid of a bad villain, likely getting rid of a bad villain. I mean, it didn't even seem to have a point to it. I mean, there could have been an arc about Zed finding a way to live in the light without losing the darkness. Hell, there seemed to be that emphasis towards moving towards that with Raito, but nothing came of it. I mean, they might be pulling an Endorf like last year, or where one of the chief villains is just in hiding for a long stretch of time, so you forget about him. Although that plot point was kind of stupid in and of itself over in Kyoryuger. So, on the Toqger front, I'm talking about Toqger. Of course, it's being on the Toqger front. With the Toqger team, they've remembered enough details to start correlating where they live to a stargazing festival that occurs in the summer, and their town is by the seaside. So, I'm still thinking they're kids in adult bodies. That would explain so much, especially with the scene we get of the kids dressed similarly to how they turned out, all coming to their big tree forts, and then the darkness kind of consuming over them that occurred in the episode. Anyways, with the Emperor and his twisted obsession out of the way, the Shadow Line is allowed to attack in full, which allows Schwartz to claim the Rainbow Line trains, at least the main 5 that form Tokyo. So when Greta reveals herself after she's gone from gentle Hinata Hyuga to... not even sure what we'd call that in comparison. Yeah, I don't have a good example. Anyways, yeah, they end up double-teaming Dieselo and Bill Dio, and it wrecks them. So I'm wondering how they're going to reclaim the trains next episode, because we got no shots of that. But Greta took Zet's crew liner, and it's apparently got a special mode, which makes it interesting. Well, more interesting. It has cannons on its shoulders. I like having cannons on its shoulders. And yeah, that's really not much that happened this time. I mean, it's all plot-relevant stuff, and it's keeping with the themes that the villains are the best thing about Toqger. But, I mean, I would have kind of preferred it had, I don't know, Zet found some way that he could do it, mainly from the body-swapping thing like last time. So he's, like, trying to take over light to claim the light that's in him, that's he's obsessed over, and then his fall is ironic, and, of course, forming Bill Dio. And then, of course, because they're married now, Greta takes over, and the shadow that was part of him, after he died, flows into her, because that's kind of the cliche with these villains. So, I like that they did something different, but I don't like how anticlimactic Zet's end was. And I'm pretty sure they're pulling an Endorf. Or something similar to that. I mean, it can't possibly be permanent to go out in such a lackluster way after building this guy up endlessly. Granted, when Greta ate him, they were using his obsession against him with the wedding dress, making it super shiny so it, like, glowed in brilliant lights, and then wings come out of Greta's back and grasp him close, embracing him, and then Greta eats him, and that. Yeah, that happened. Over to Gaim. I want to know what love is! There's this scene in the episode where Redyu is embracing Michi in some kind of weird way that's trying to... I think she's flirting with him now. I'm not entirely certain, but there was this image set that appeared on Tumblr that was pretty much the scene in still by stills, and since it didn't have the subtitles yet, I looked at it. Kind of looks like they're having a romantic moment. Now, Michi, of course, would not do that, and it looks out of character, but it just looks so like... It was like the perfect joke opportunity. I'm blanking on... Oh, right. Kota rallies the troops to invade Yggdrasil and go get Mai through Ryoma Sengoku's secret entrance. It's actually a decent scene, but it's Kota being reckless and Kaito being a bit off from being Kaito. I think it's because of that injury on his arm that shows he's, like, dying or something. But it's not... I mean, I was totally wrong about the green indicating he's becoming less human. I mean, Kota's the only one that's becoming that right now. And... well, we get another setting of... not setting. We get another view of how this conflict has escalated. One of the problems with the final conflict in Kamen Rider series is that it's usually on a grander scale than the normal guerrilla warfare skirmishes the riders usually endure. And so the question is always raised why none of the other Sentai or Kamen Riders that share this continuity, because they do share a continuity now, post-Decade they're all on one Earth, and this one does it in a good way in that, well, a few episodes ago, Roshuo opened cracks to the Helheim all over the planet, so the Invests are invading everywhere. Now, all of Earth's toy continuity defenders would be off busy with this, while the only ones left are the Beat Riders, and we get to see that scale as Ryoma shows that the JSDF was completely previously barricading the city has withdrawn to protect safe areas. You know, blockading off cities that can be saved that are they're not working to contain it anymore. They're trying to keep it from spreading to population centers. I think that's the best way to do it. And in this kind of invasion, yeah, that works. I mean, could have been a lot worse. So, pretty much they have to go through Invest-controlled territory from out of Invest-controlled territory to get to Ryoma's secret base thing. And we lose Jonuchi and Oren in this episode. At least it's implied, because Metal Yoshida's pretty much said that this was going to be his last appearance when they filmed this months ago. Granted, Gen Urobuchi had only written the finale like a couple weeks ago, so he might have just not been called back for filming yet. That's entirely possible. So yeah, they go to Ryoma's secret entrance, and it's barricaded by Suika arms units and tulip poppers, because he had to create a defense system. I'm betting they're all run off of the same connecting lock seed like Sid used to remote control Suika lock seeds before. Does that make sense? Then again, I'm wondering what kind of system he installed to get that all working, and yet it didn't protect the tower at all. Especially since, you would have had physical people to command it. I mean, I know, Invest Overlord is on a higher tier than Suika Arms, because Suika Arms is below Energy Rider Arms, and Energy Rider Arms keep their asses kicked, but I'm just curious what happened to it and why this is a new development. Or was it just something Ryoma set up there first to protect his entrance? And why does he not have a means of disabling it so he can get in, but everybody else can't? Because he says he can only disarm it from inside the building, which contextually doesn't work right. Okay, it works fine, but you'd think he'd be smarter than this. I mean, he's getting test data still. He's gathering data still from all of the personal rider fights that he sees. Hell, Kota has to go Kiwami to destroy another Overlord. He just hangs back for a bit and watches it all happen. And now we get the comparison again. Gilgamesh in silver. Because Kota summons 4 Lockseed weapons at once, and they're just floating in the air, and then he just flings them at the Overlord he's fighting. And, well, it lacks the back bits. It's also similar to Archer. Well, technically they're both Archers. It's Gilgamesh and Counter Guardian Mia from Fate's Stay Night, and he wrote for Fate's Stay Night. Well, he wrote the Fate Zero novel, which was adapted into the anime, and I really need to watch that anime. But yeah, we've been seeing this for a while. Hell, a guy drew a picture of pretty much Kiwami arms replacing Gilgamesh, and we're seeing that more and more that is fiction depicting, well, fan works predicting the fiction they're a fan of. Ugh. Mai is taken to Roshuo by Michi to protect her from Redyu because he's not certain how much he can trust Redyu after this, because he's pretty much just zoned in on humanity can go screw themselves if they don't survive, if this is over. If I'm in charge and they're alive, I'll take it, but as long as Mai's right, the world is right. And we see a bit more of a psychosis as he can't restrain himself from yelling at the manifestation Takatora, even in Mai's presence, so he has way gone off the deep end. Admittedly, we knew this, but he even can't hide it from Mai. Unfortunately, Mai has some of the similar issues as Kota in that she hasn't ridden off Michi quite just yet. I'd still want to say beat him into the ground and make him repent and ask him after all this is over. I mean, you don't have to kill the guy, you just need to depower him. And then he's no longer a problem. Aim for the belt. Hell, you did it. It's been done to that was how Hase lost it, after all. His belt got destroyed, then he had his whole thing. Takatora died after his belt was destroyed because, at least we think he did, because drowning. Admittedly, there has only been one incident where someone who falls into a body of water in Kamen Rider actually has died. Soon. But yeah, Mai talks with Roshuo, and Roshuo points out that everything she says is kind of contradictory in that she's not ready to give up on Michi despite how despicable he is, and I guess it's showing how jaded Roshuo is in that he can't tell the difference between someone lying and someone who's honest anymore, and I guess Mai is the example of humanity's worth he needs to see, because his 2 examples to date have been Sid, who was greedy for the forbidden fruit, and Michi, who will betray and kill anyone he wants as long as he gets what he wants, and screw the fruit if it's not going to get him what he wants. And then there's Sagara, who's saying that they're worth it, or there should be the the Overlord's successors because their time is over, or something like that, and Roshuo doesn't believe him, and so there's the test, and now we're just getting into all of these plot elements again. Garo. Garo was based off of fear this week. I mean, the horror was based off of fear. Shut up. But yeah, the horror this week likes to drive up the fear by putting them in a box that creates a movie theater-like illusion, but it's not an illusion because its power makes the manifestations real, and pretty much she just ramps up and feasts after their terror has been maxed, and that's not an original MO for the horrors. I mean, they do humans, they just season them with the emotions that they spawn, and I guess I like the way they were setting it up. Like, people like to feel fear in comfortable conditions. That's the reason people like horror movies and thrill rides and things that invoke horror. I'm trying to name the correct emotion from that all of these. It's you know, driving up the endorphin responses so that, you know, drive up the heart rate, all that kind of stuff to feel exhilaration and in safe environments, and this horror is taking advantage of that. And it does it in the form of a box and a woman dressed like a black witch. Black mage. Yeah, the traditional Final Fantasy Black Mage cosplay. I actually got a chuckle out of that, and the thing, though, is that she's constantly smiling. Now, this is a running theme with horrors in that they're grinning, they're very happy after possessed. It's rare to see them as, you know, serious and horrific until they're until the jig is up, and I guess it gives a good tell in storytelling, but I think after so many failed, you should never trust someone who smiles all the time, has been my philosophy, because you never know what they're hiding if that's all that they do. I guess it's kind of the way they smile too. If it's soft, I guess it's alright, but if it's like all the time, then there's something wrong, because there's no way someone could be that ridiculously happy all the time. And the teeth sold it. The teeth on this actress were just way out there. I mean, no offense to her, but I think it helped sell it for this one. Of course, Raiga and Kuro come across it as it's setting up its big meal, because this horror likes to... That was one of the things, another thing I liked with this. It gets 3 victims, but doesn't actually dig in. It teases them with this exhilaration event, and then it leads them to get more people, so it can eat a lot of people at once. And I thought that was rather clever, because then it needs to eat less, I think. I'm not exactly certain still how much a horror needs to devour, if it's like a bottomless pit kind of thing. So it eats all of them at once, and then it can go on its merry way to get more victims instead of striking repeatedly. So it can, you know, go underground for a bit if it need be. But Raiga and Kuro get the audience away through the use of a smoke bomb. So, you know, smoking building, everybody out, everybody out. And then we reach the flaw, because Kuro's been pretty much non-existent in the plot since his introduction. I mean, he showed up in some battles, but it's been pretty minimalistic. I mean, Rei had a good reason for, you know, stalking the background and intervening, and Kuro's like, oh, we're both in this case, let's work together. Oh, no, that's not how the plot frames it. It has to be Raiga fighting alone. All of the time. So yeah, Raiga fights the horror alone, kills it, and then it drops her through the collapse of her special realm into something that can access the horror dimension. Then Kuro gets in the box, uses his armor's wings to save Raiga from falling into the horror dimension. They kill a bunch of horrors that were also in this connected dimension space, and then everything is fine. I think by now that Kuro should have had his own episode, or been more relevant in the conflict than just being shoved to the background. I mean, Raiga's the main character, yeah, but usually the secondary's gotten more development than this. I mean, he's pretty much a blank slate. Consistent, yes, with how he's practically made himself into a blank slate, but even in the episode, that was about how his plan, for lack of a better term, that uses the Kuro armor, congregates around the Kuro armor, a few episodes back, that was made into more of an episode about Mayuri and how her place in the world as this aberrant thing, she's not aberrant, but you get what I mean, is like this thing they were using to purify their blades, instead of about how Kuro relates to everything. And now I think was a bit of a mistake that keeps getting repeated. And I know it's not happening next week, because I saw the previews for next week. It's another Raiga flashback episode, I think. Speaking of, there is no Toqger and no Gaim next week. Again. I think this is the third time they've done that during this run. I mean, Gaim, yeah, it's going to be short on episodes. We've known this for a while. But I feel like there's something wrong in the production that they're cutting these back. The June one is apparently a recurring one and has been for some time. There's usually a break around December for a week or two. But I'm wondering why it is this time. I'll see you all next week.